happy Friday to you. Welcome. This Friday afternoon you have found On One Accord. My name is Jackie El Toro. My guest this week is Donna Tate. She is part of CUI, which is Community Unification Initiative, and a member at the Greater Piney Grove Baptist Church, where she is co-chair of Embrace Healthy Temple Ministry there. This week we're going to talk about HIV/AIDS and the church, particularly HIV/AIDS and the African American church. Donna, and you know, some people call you Mother Tate, Mrs. Tate. Now, so we're going to be a little informal here and just go with Donna and Jackie. So, welcome to On One Accord. Thank you for agreeing to be our guest. And you have a big day coming up tomorrow. Let's talk about it.
Yes, a great day. Thank you for inviting me. Jackie, you have been such an inspiration helping us with Embrace the Healthy Temple, HIV/AIDS ministry, and with Community Unification Initiatives, lovingly known as CUI. Tomorrow is a big day. We are having a prayer breakfast, and it's called the Restoration Christians Praying Without Ceasing. Restoration Christians Praying Without Ceasing. The purpose of the prayer breakfast is to tear down the barriers and the stigmas around HIV and AIDS, and to pray for all diseases with an emphasis on HIV/AIDS. It is our third annual prayer breakfast, and it's leading up to our big AIDS walk in December, which is World AIDS Day. And Jackie, thank you for being one of our mighty prayer warriors.
Oh, anytime we can pray. Last night I was in a revival. For those of you who watched the show last week, it's Pastor Trina's revival. And Trina mentioned that a lot of people say prayer changes things. Well, in Trina's mind, to quote Pastor Peterson, prayer changes people, and people act to change things.
Amen.
Okay, so we're going to pray to change the hearts and minds of people. And then as the Lutheran Church in ELCA, we say it's God's work, our hands, so that prayer that we are bringing forth will change the hearts and the minds of people so that we can do God's work here. And, you know, we just need to do that. The thing that you and I have been together, I guess, is about 7 years working on HIV initiatives. This is, what, the 9th AIDS Walk for Piney Grove? I came on board on walk number 2 or 3. And since we've met, the Lutheran community has been there, because I am the Lutheran at the Baptist Church, and Emmanuel Lutheran Church, St. Paul in Decatur, Peace Lutheran in Decatur, and A New Thing. Members from A New Thing have participated in the walk and supported the walk in past years. Why is it so important to you? The prayer breakfast is ecumenical. Why are ecumenical relationships important?
Ecumenical relationships are not only important, they are essential. Particularly as black folks, one of the characteristics of our race is that we normally flock to the church, regardless of denomination. And we listen to what is being said from the pulpit and what the elders of the church say to us, and we think it's so important that we rear our children in the church and take that information on to them. Traditionally, the faith community has been, I won't say silent, but at least a whisper when we talk about HIV and AIDS. It is time, absolutely time, for us to join together to get the message out about education, prevention, and most importantly, to be able to love and embrace people who are living with HIV and AIDS.
Well, you know, I'm wearing a shirt today, a T-shirt that I happen to love, but my children happen to hate. And it simply says, HIV-positive children deserve treatment too. And oftentimes we forget that HIV has affected and infected children, children below the age of 18. The rate for children born positive now has dropped significantly because of treatment and education, but still we have a lot of HIV. And then there's pastors who don't fully understand the disease. You have pastors who refuse to baptize folk who are HIV positive. There are folks who refuse to commune an HIV positive person. And a lot of churches just simply aren't welcoming or embracing positive people, and positive people are having to live more in the closet. Why do you think in our community, when the numbers of new cases among women in our age group or who look like us is increasing, we still in our pews have folks who believe that it's a gay white man's disease?
Again, it goes back to education. And let's be real about it, Jackie. The reason why HIV and AIDS is at a whisper in many churches, regardless of denomination, is because people think of HIV and they think of sex. Okay? They refuse to believe that seniors still have sex. They refuse to believe that it is not a gay disease, that heterosexuals are increasingly getting infected, new cases. I was on a mission for a while there, where all I was doing was going around to our black churches, and particularly the small black churches, to say, look, Pastor, let us help you establish a health ministry, an HIV/AIDS ministry. And you know the story behind that, and we'll get to that as well. In an area, in a zip code in the Atlanta area, where the statistics were highest in that zip code, a pastor said to me, oh no, we don't need that because none of us have that over here. It's about education, it's about empowerment, and then in defense of our leaders in the church, one pastor openly said to me, Donna, I support what you're doing, is necessary, but I can't be too vocal because then it looks like our church is a gay church. Time out for that.
You know, I think what we're doing as two lay people having a conversation about HIV is empowering, simply because it needs to be and must be a lay movement. Pastors are not willing to get into a pulpit, and I'm not pastor bashing, but a pastor encouraging, not willing to talk openly about sex. It's the same thing with breast cancer. You don't have a lot of pastors getting up talking about go get a mammogram, because there too is the connotation of sex. But then they don't talk about a prostate exam either. So anything dealing with sexual organs or something that's been conscribed as sexual organs, pastors aren't willing to address from the pulpits. They think that the pulpit is a place that they have to reserve for all things holy, if thus saith the Lord, and talking about HIV was not in the Bible. But lepers were in the Bible, and Jesus healed the lepers, and Jesus ministered to the lepers. Is not HIV or forms of cancer today's leprosy?
Absolutely. And I can't take my eyes off your t-shirt, Jackie. HIV positive kids deserve treatment. It is so amazing to me that what you just said about the mammogram and the prostate exam and other diseases that are in our population worldwide, when you start talking about kids, people kind of loosen up a little bit. They're like, okay, well, it's a baby. In their mind, it's because, well, I know the baby didn't have sex, I know the little kid didn't have sex. It doesn't matter how I got diabetes. If I got diabetes, I got diabetes. It doesn't matter where the person contracted the disease. What matters is that we love one another, put our money where our mouth is for research, get our politicians to push programs that will help. Now, you mentioned lay people. Well, that's a good topic for us to talk about, because we started out as Embrace HIV/AIDS Ministry.
I remember that.
We had another ministry that was called Healthy Temple. Well, when HIV/AIDS Ministry had an event, there were a few loyal people like yourself and some others. When Healthy Temple had an event, there were more people there. And so we got this brainstorm, because there were three people in our ministry, 3 people in their ministry. We said, why don't all 6 of us get together and have a ministry called Embrace the Healthy Temple? That ministry has been very successful because we're talking about the entire body. It's not just people who have been diagnosed with the virus. It's people with Alzheimer's. We have programs for caregivers. We have the breast cancer awareness and just a whole array of things. Well, that sounds good, and it is good. Then when we did reach out to our brothers and sisters in the gay community, or those who weren't gay but who identified themselves willingly as being HIV positive because of the treatment or shunning or stigma that they had experienced previously coming into the church, they were like, Donna, you know, we love what you're doing and we know you're part of the church, but we're not going up in there. So we decided to form a nonprofit. That's where CUI came in. That way, not only do we embrace more people, but the reality of it is that the lawmakers and the people who give grants we can take one layer of excuse away from them. They're not donating money to the church if they give us a grant. So we as lay people have to be involved, and we just simply cannot just sit on our laurels and say, well, you know, that's real nice what Donna and Jackie are doing. Everybody's got to pull together and try to help out.
In terms of advocacy and lawmakers, this is the political season. We need to really be talking about who to vote for. All right, I know this show is not dedicated to the election, although I will encourage everyone to go vote. I will not tell you who to vote for. I will ask you to pray and use common sense. But not just on a presidential level, but we need to look at politicians on a local level, the governors, the senators, the congressmen, the state representatives, the state senators, and even our city council people or county commissioners, and who is supportive of research, of prevention. Who are the HIV/AIDS supporters? Who, not even that, who is the supporter, but who is aware of the situation? You know, do we really have a slate of elected officials that have an understanding of the disease? And to be proactive rather than reactive, what are we doing? What do you know of churches doing in terms of advocacy? Is there anything happening? Or do we need to start a movement?
We need to start a movement.
Start a movement.
Start a movement. That'll be our slogan, start a movement. What I have experienced in talking with local officials is they're still politicians, okay?
Just like preachers.
Yeah. You know, and they say some very appropriate things at the appropriate time. I think what you have said has struck a nerve in me, in that we should have some sort of slate, some sort of flyer, some sort of report card that tells where people stand. There is a community in Atlanta, I will call the community because I'm very familiar with it. The Kirkwood community has really had a great transition in the past several years. And it's a wonderful community. The transition has been with ethnic background and racial makeup. It's had a great transition. That zip code in that community just 3 or 4 years ago had a tremendous dubious distinction of having so many people in that small zip code who were diagnosed as being HIV positive.
You know, now let's talk about that diagnosis of an HIV positive versus having AIDS, because you can be HIV positive and not have AIDS. And years ago, let's go back 30 years ago when they first started discovering HIV and AIDS, diagnosis or saying that you were HIV positive was surely a death sentence. But now we know people who have lived 25, 28 years HIV positive and never developed full-blown AIDS because of research, because of education, because of taking preventive measures, because of not being double infected, of being infected with one strain and just stop the infection, you know. The place that I go to get awesome news, and this is just an educational piece for our viewers, is Balm and Gilead.
Absolutely.
They send out emails. They are the cutting edge on everything in our community in dealing with HIV/AIDS. And when you go to their website, sometimes it is very disappointing for me to look at the state of Georgia, and then you look at the congregations and the organizations that are members of Balm and Gilead. And it's disappointing that more of us aren't there on a national level. I am the past president of the Georgia African American Lutheran Association, and I'm very proud that during my tenure there, GALA was very active with Balm and Gilead, and we still are listed as being one of the places to come and get information. Last year at my church, Emmanuel Lutheran Church, we did a forum on HIV, and we were very instrumental in getting people there. Caught some conversation, some dialogue about that. In that forum, we were very intentional to have HIV positive people on the panel, as well as people who did not have AIDS. But we did not say who was who. In fact, we didn't even tell people there were going to be HIV positive people in the room. And it was remarkable that folk sat there attentively and listened to people speak and heard stories, and then was like in total awe when the person said, "And I have been positive for 20 years," or "I have full-blown AIDS." Yeah, you don't think of the person sitting next to you being HIV positive, but when you see the person who is HIV positive living a full life, living life to the fullest of what God created life to be, and it's just a disease. It is a very progressive disease. It's a clever disease. My daughter used to say, HIV is like the smartest organism out there because it can morph in so many different ways, and it's constantly changing. And while the disease is constantly changing, the people infected with it remain the same. They still remain on the outside of the doors. Tell us your story, and I know it's a very personal story, how you got involved. I will say a dear friend of mine, my play brother, I watched him grow up. I watched him be in Boy Scouts and graduate from high school. He was a comic book artist. I have his 2 comic books that he was able to publish before he passed on. He died of AIDS. And his struggle with HIV and his mom's never accepting that he was infected. And even in death, she refused. She just told everyone that he died of an asthma attack. You know, but yeah, it was the asthma attack technically, but it was HIV. And I'm seeing on the screen right now, you are seeing the AIDS Quilt Project. And before we hear your story, I want to talk about the AIDS Quilt Project. And how many churches, again, I have to go to churches, how many churches have a panel in the AIDS Quilt Project? You know, how many in our community are there? And an interesting thing, we do have, as the Georgia African American Lutheran Association, we did a panel for that. And anybody having an event for World AIDS Day, you have just 6 weeks left to request a panel, to request a piece of the quilt to come for your event. Contact the Names Project. It's right here in Atlanta, for those of you who are in Atlanta. And for those of you who are not, either way, you can call them at 404-688-5500 and request that the AIDS Memorial Quilt come to your community. It is so powerful. And one of the most touching things about the quilt, and if you've seen the quilt itself, a lot of people are coming back now and wanting to redo their panels, because when they first did the panel, there was still the stigma, and they didn't want to put the name of the person they were honoring. They would put a nickname or a first name, and now they're going back and adding the last name. They're adding more personal stuff. You're beginning to see pictures of loved ones on the quilt, not just names and little trinkets and mementos. It's a powerful expression of who we are and where we are. Okay, so Donna, before we run out of time, please share your story and why you're so passionate about HIV.
Jackie, there's so many things I want to respond to, but because of the time factor, I will hone in on my personal story, and hopefully time will be there for me to add some things, highlight what you said. My son, my oldest son, died from AIDS. During the time that my son was ill and was under that stigma heavily, he lied to people, and he got me to lie to him. Mama, don't tell him I'm HIV positive. And then when it moved on to AIDS, Mama, don't tell him I have AIDS. I had a store. He said, Mama, if you tell him I have AIDS, they're not going to buy anything from your store. I said, that's totally ridiculous. It turned out that he was very wise in what he was saying. People do need to understand what you said, and that is, the person is not AIDS. The person is not HIV. The person is still my son, your daughter, your auntie, your neighbor, your friend. They're still the same person. I thank God that we have made advances where people are living much, much longer. But what has not changed, the medicines may be better, but where's our head?
And our heart.
And our heart. Where's our heart? Now, Atlanta, you can't go down 2 streets without seeing 10 churches. So there is no excuse for us not to come together and attack the disease, attack the mentality of people who don't understand it. And folks who are listening, please know the difference between HIV and AIDS. People are living so long with HIV. And so let's not think, well, if I shake her hand or give her a hug or give him a place at my table, that I will be infected. That is just ignorance. And we must become informed, and we must work together. Let me tell you something. It has no age, no color, no economic background. when the disease, when the virus and the disease are on set, there is no difference.
We, as the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, a few years ago wrote a social statement. Our church has 11 social statements, and we're in the process of writing the 11th now. And one that we do have is on HIV and AIDS, and it is the church's stance, and it speaks to advocacy on a national level and how we petitioned federal government to make AIDS research and development a priority. For the first time in America, we had the World Conference on AIDS in Washington, D.C. back in April or March, and that was in large part, or at least some small part, in the advocacy that the ELCA was doing. Here in Atlanta, our Senate, our bishop has formed a task force on HIV/AIDS. So any of you Lutherans, call Bishop Gordy and say, I want to be active in the task force on HIV/AIDS. And if you're not Lutheran, go to your pastor and, let's say, develop a ministry. The end of AIDS epidemic is in sight. There is a national week of prayer, and it's never too early to start planning for that. That is March 3rd through 9th in 2013. Every church should have prayer vigils every night that week. And, it would be wonderful. It would just be so awesome if we all were coming together in an ecumenical vein to do a national week in prayer. That's something we could be advocates for. Take the Nike theme and just do it.
Just do it. Just do it.
We need to start a revolution. We
need to start a revolution.
Start the movement. And testing. Testing is so vital because many people who are positive don't realize they're positive and they're infecting other folk. And then there are some folk who know they're positive and want to infect other folk. How do you deal with the anger?
That's a question I don't have an answer to. But what I do have is a recommendation for is that we are doing testing at the Greater Piney Grove Baptist Church. We're working with a community-based organization. We're just starting it on a regular basis, and we will be testing twice a month. And it's not for Piney Grove. It's for our community. In endorsement of our pastor, Pastor William E. Flippin Sr., Pastor has been very, very supportive of the HIV/AIDS ministry and the Healthy Temple ministry. And for folks listening, that's not just a few words from the corporate. He actually gives us a budget. You've got to have some money to implement the programs. We're located on Glenwood in Southeast Atlanta. We do have a website, and CUI's website is CUIATL.org. You'll see updates about the testing, and we need you to come out and be with Jackie and me and the rest of us who are still on the battlefield and been on the battlefield for a long time.
Alrighty, now we have upcoming events, because our time is just about over here. Tomorrow, the prayer breakfast at the Greater Piney Grove Baptist Church, located at 1879 Glenwood Avenue, Southeast Atlanta. Zip code is 30318. And then on Sunday's going to be a very powerful day. At Emmanuel Lutheran Church, we're celebrating Women's Day, and that is called Rejoice in the Lord Always. And again, I say rejoice. And a shameless plug, my daughter is delivering the message on Women's Day at Emmanuel. Robin El Toro is the speaker. And we must plug our children. Also tomorrow, we will be doing, it's Worship in Pink weekend, Worship in Pink Sunday, but we're calling it Warriors in Pink. We are taking to the battlefield for not just breast cancer this year, but all types of cancer, because we in our congregation at Emmanuel and Piney Grove congregation as well has lost so many people this year to cancer, and the year's not even over with yet. We will be Warriors in Pink come out. It's at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We won't be there all night, and you'll get some good food at the end of it. Come out, celebrating in memories. We will be sharing the memories of those who have passed on this year. Fall Festival is the 27th at 3 p.m. from 3 to 7 p.m. at Christ Lutheran School and Church at 2719 DeLoe Drive in East Point, Georgia. And Reformation at Emory. This is going to be an exciting day. Reformation Sunday is a big deal in the Lutheran Church. And Emory at the Cannon Chapel, the sanctuary at Cannon Chapel in Emory, on Thursday, October 25th. Special guest speaker will be our presiding bishop of the ELCA, Bishop Mark S. Hansen, and he always brings a powerful message. It's that time again. I'd like to say thank you for tuning in, thank you for joining us, and always be on one accord.